First of all, I know Nigeria right now is getting the heat back to back from Ghana and from South Africa. See, to me, Ghana is not doing anything wrong in my face. Ghana are only protesting for peaceful protests. They're not destroying foreigners' businesses. They're not stealing them. They're not killing their own black skin color.
To my fellow Africans, I think you guys need to understand that at where we are right now, at the junction that we are right now, there's nothing you guys can do or say to hold South Africans to ransom. Yeah, there's nothing you can do to hold us hostage, because I think that's what you guys want to do. You want to manipulate South Africans and you want to corner us, and it's not going to work.
Talk about the South African protests and the safety of Ghanaians. And look at the way forward. I'll start with you, Amanda, again, because you've been doing a lot of troubles, and then I'll bring in a lawyer as well, not Beidou, but both you. So Amanda, how do we safeguard Ghanaians who are living in South Africa?
Well, I think the foreign minister has done a great job in putting forward, the message that Ghanaians everywhere will be protected. It's very much what the US does in terms of, any citizen they have in any country. If something is happening, they will bring light to that. So I do think that already they've done a very good job by saying they will repatriate Ghanaians who want to come back, and they're going to send a plane, etc. And I think the lady Queen V, who was leading the charge in South Africa, came up with something in the last 24 hours where she sort of tried to spin things a little and say that, well, if we provided opportunities to Ghanaians, we wouldn't be doing things like nail jobs and different things like that. I mean, she came up with something really silly.
That if we Ghana...
If Ghana, instead of the foreign minister speaking like this, he should rather be working on how Ghanaians can provide more opportunities to their fellow Ghanaians, so they wouldn't have to go to South Africa. Yes, it was on Ghana Web. It was leading on Ghana Web this morning.
Does she know what South Africa is doing in Ghana?
Exactly.
Argument.
I mean, exactly.
Is that a Zuma lady?
Yes, I think yes, that's what she said. But I mean, my honest view about this is that, the foreign minister has done a great job as usual. But in a way, I also do get this slight sense that leadership must stop deflecting and prioritize Ghana first in terms of we who are in Ghana as well. And I say that because, for instance, when there was this whole talk about the OSP and 10 civil society groups coming out and saying that they wanted to join the petition with the OSP, something came out like, and I know the timing could have been different, but the president said something like, don't eat Banku after 7 p.m. Or something like that. And I was just like, well, everybody's talking about this that really matters, and you're doing this. And then the next thing that came out was this South Africa thing. You know what I mean? Which is, we should focus on it. But if you have millions of Ghanaians talking about our architecture for crime in terms of we might not want it changed to the point where executive gatekeeping happens. Perhaps speak to that more, even if it's going to the Supreme Court, and speak to the fact that, lights out, do so. And, the points made earlier were very important. We're talking about people who have freezers full of fish, produce. I mean, this is a real Ghana. That's why I was smiling earlier. The statistics are great, and it might be lost on a lot of the public. But the truth is, the average woman who is selling fish in her freezer and the light goes off for 3 days in Kumasi cares more about how government is going to address that immediately and cries about it on the pulpit. You know what I mean? I think one of the leaders was recently crying on Sunday about, his people won't do that again in terms of how they spoke to a pastor. And I was like thinking, but if you did this for the public of Ghana, you were crying about how they were crying about their ECG and their OSP and their, you know what I mean, rather than one individual. And I'm sorry to say this, but that was my view. So ultimately, I do think that, Ghanaians protecting other Ghanaians in different countries and even sending a plane to get them back is a good signal. But the millions of Ghanaians who voted for you care more about you addressing our ECG problem, care about executive gatekeeping. OSP might not be working, so improve it or change the legislature, but address it. You know what I mean? Don't talk about Banku per se and, making such a big deal about this South Africa thing, which it could have just been dealt with in a 10-minute briefing.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Lahoto,
yes,
because this has been a recurrent, happening. How do we really do it? Get it done such that it won't happen again?
It's a problem that will require a lot of education, you see, because I think so far the foreign minister and the Ghana embassy in South Africa, they are doing a good job. However, this is something that is Africa-wide. And, there was a time when I was at Legon, I and a group of Ghanaian students went for this conference in another African country. I don't want to drag another African country into this. And we're walking on the street, and they called out to me because of my slightly different complexion. Okay. Like, you are a brother. Why are you walking with these people? They are thieves, this, that. And we started laughing amongst ourselves because they didn't know I was a Ghanaian. Sometimes we look at just Ghanaian. Sometimes we look at just appearances and we have our own prejudices. You see, South Africa has been through a lot of turmoil. I've been there a few times. I know the story of, is it Lionel Peterson, the young boy who was killed, and the apartheid era and all that. And when I look at some of those leading this xenophobic cause, one of them was born in 1986, 4 years before Mandela was released. And I remember when Mandela was released, I was in primary school. We were on our way back home. And when it was announced on radio, it was an emotional moment. Cars stopped, horns were blowing, Ghanaians were rejoicing that Mandela has been released. But this young lady, she does not, I don't think she knows that history. She doesn't know what her people have been through. She doesn't know.
The role of Ghana.
And the role of Ghana in that. You see, and a cousin of mine posted about how my uncle actually gave a personal check of $10,000 to.
Oh, that's your cousin?
Yes, he's my cousin.
I read it. I was like, hey, those days, $10,000. Hey.
And I didn't even know that. Because at a point in my school, I used to work for my uncle.
Okay.
And I didn't know that. You see, and when he posted it, I looked at the reactions, and only about 10 people were laughing on Facebook. And when I checked, there were South African names. And I was very hurt. But of course, it goes back to education, letting us know, or letting the current crop of whether South Africans, Ghanaians, Nigerians, whoever, know where we have come from as a people and having a common destiny. Because we can't say Ghana to our hands are exactly clean. We've had Nigeria must go before in the
Ghana must go
in the early late 60s. We've had Ghana must go in the is it late 70s or
I think it should be the 80s.
Or the 80s.
Yeah.
You see, so it's something that is not limited to South Africa alone. We need to educate ourselves. We need to know where we have come from and where we are going, and that we have a common enemy. The common enemy is not. The common enemy is poverty, disease. It is not your brother who belongs to another tribe or another country or another complexion. South Africans, of course, they are frustrated, and I would say that the white South Africans, they are also South Africans. They've also contributed to the South African economy. They are not going anywhere. But sometimes there may be some grievances by the black South Africans that their land has been taken and all that. But, I mean, the opportunities for reparation, the opportunities for returning your land. However, do not take it out on your fellow black man. And in Ghana, sometimes we are tempted to do that. Even in Nigeria recently, with the kidnapping of John Aaron, people came out speaking against the Fulanis. I said, why are you speaking against them as a people? It was just one or two or three, a few Fulani boys who captured this boy. So we just have to get rid of these prejudices in our educational system. And it's everywhere, even in Ghana. But I think South Africa has to work harder on that, and all these things will be solved. And of course, I admit that they said they just want undocumented migrants to be thrown out of the country. But undocumented migrants, only the black people. And I think the migrants there too, they should also take steps where they can to regularize their stay. But it all boils down to education.
Look.
Their march in the city. This is against illegal migration, they say. It comes on the back of several march demonstrations, which saw leaders deliver memorandums to demand that both the Gauteng legislature and the union buildings do something about undocumented foreign nationals. Now, the movement has been calling for the removal of undocumented nationals and the tightening of border controls. Meanwhile, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres raising concerns over reports of xenophobic attacks during these protests. International Relations Department spokesperson Crispin Piri talking to us tonight. Crispin, good to have you with us. Let's start with the reason the Department of International Relations would deem it necessary to conduct an interview such as this one on the back of what we are seeing on the country's streets. How concerning are these images?
I think the images have to be contextualized for what they are. We are seeing people protesting against illegal immigration, which is a valid concern. South Africa is one of the highest receivers of immigrants on the continent. So I think where there are concerns of illegal immigration, we have to take them seriously. And where we're able to receive petitions from individuals petitioning this type of conduct, we welcome that. What we are concerned about is people taking the law into their own hands and acts of vigilantism, randomly finding people on the street and then asking them to produce documents. We think that's an element which we need to nip in the bud And we would have seen the Minister of Police issued a statement to this effect saying that that will not be condoned at all and that will be addressed by law enforcement agencies. So we want to say that whilst their concerns around illegal immigration are valid, the state is also taking the necessary steps to address these. So the Minister of Home Affairs recently announced that 500,000 people have been deported from the period of April 2023 to where we are now, April. That's a significant number of people. It shows you that we have a system in place to detect illegal immigrants, or people who are entering our country illegally, and we have processes to deport them. The second important issue that I do want to highlight, Paul, is that also you'd recall in the President's State of the Nation address, he announced that 20,000 labor inspectors will be employed to address companies also employing illegal immigrants. And that is a very, very big concern. That's not only against the law, but also these are jobs that South Africans who have the legitimate qualifications could have taken up, but companies are also violating the law. So that is a matter that the state is taking quite seriously to address. And as I understand it, the Labour Department is quite advanced in employing those labour inspectors.
Possibly of major concern for a department such as the one that you represent here tonight. This is a department that interacts with a lot of countries outside of South Africa. You are basically our chief diplomats. When the United Nations Secretary General, whilst congratulating the country on the milestone of the Freedom Day celebrations that we recently observed, but he also hastens to remind us that the struggle against apartheid was sustained not only through international but African solidarity. That's got to be a sore point, is it not?
I think it's a timely reminder, and I think it really shows how important South Africa is in the international community for the Secretary General to come and say, you know, some of these things that we are seeing are concerning. And it's a good reminder for South Africans of firstly who we are and what we mean to the international community. But one of the things that Minister Lamula has also been very clear in stating is that illegal immigration is not only a South African problem. So we need to address its root causes. So if you look at the Southern African community, where we have 380 million people, a lot of those people would come through South Africa, and we would interact with South Africa in various ways. So we need to be engaging those countries in the SADC region as well about the illegal immigration problem. And that's what Minister Lamula is quite determined to do and will be doing through the course of this month with a number of his counterparts in the region, but also engaging members of the African diaspora who are here about some of the concerns of South Africans, but also how we can address the root causes. And addressing the root causes goes right down to increasing economic cooperation. As I've said, we have a population of 380 million people in the SADC region, but the trade amongst us in SADC is only at about 29%. So that means that a lot of the people in other countries would come here for economic opportunities. But if we are able to ensure that other countries' economies are equally strong and are performing at a level that creates jobs, then we reduce the influx towards South Africa, I think, quite significantly. I
also understand that the minister has been in conversations with at least a few of the countries whose nationals may have been affected. His Ghanaian counterpart, I would want to know from you, and I'm sure the viewers would be keen to know as well, what were the outcomes of the discussions between him and his Ghanaian counterpart, but also Tanzania has also been speaking on this. Tell us about those two.
The Ghanaian minister did raise some concerns following some incidents in KwaZulu-Natal around a Ghanaian citizen, and has subsequently then also welcomed the statement from the Minister of Police, which has been very clear that whilst we understand that citizens may raise issues about what they see as a problem, what we will not tolerate as a country is vigilantism, so people taking their law into their own hands. Both foreigners and citizens have an obligation to comply with the rule of law. We've also seen a statement from the Tanzanian embassy in South Africa stating that what you are seeing is South Africans protesting about illegal immigration. These are not necessarily xenophobic actions by their nature. And I think that is a very welcome observation by the Tanzanian embassy in South Africa, and we welcome that.
Finally, as we wind down the conversation, the people who are at the forefront of the protests that we are seeing, their statements are crystal clear, at least to the people that are following them, and that is that officials in South Africa are failing to address this adequately because they themselves are conflicted. Don't ask me what they are basing their accusations on, but they will say things like it's because they're taking monies from foreigners and therefore they are unable to take drastic and appropriate action in order to stem the tide of illegal migration. How do you speak to the leadership that is at the forefront of these protests? Yes, memorandums are being accepted by people such as the Premier of Gauteng that you see on your TV now, but at the end of the day, a message has got to come from the top so that this is stemmed, because the longer it takes, I don't need to remind you of the possible consequences.
No, indeed, and these concerns are valid. We continuously see Home Affairs announcing that people have been arrested for taking bribes, either at the border posts or even where they process documents. So we do see our own officials, government individuals who have a huge responsibility, almost the custodians of the state, alongside citizens, doing things that are not correct. So those concerns are valid. We should take courage, though, that the system is able to detect some of these individuals and they are now facing the consequences.
The truth. Because what I'm about to say now, I can give you guys evidence if I'm being called upon to give you guys the evidences of what I'm about to say. We live in a country now where there's so many human trafficking going on in Ghana. We have Nigerians bringing underage girls from Nigeria, 16 years, 17 years, 18 years, ladies that are supposed to be in school, that are supposed to be educated. They pack them from Nigeria, they put them in a bus, they bring them to Ghana, they harbor them, 20 of them in a room for prostitution. What I'm saying, like I said, if I'm being called to come out with evidences, I will prove and I will bring evidences of everything that I'm saying. They bring their young men to Ghana, they rent the Ghanaian landlords. You guys should be very careful. They rent our apartments, 2 bedrooms, they have about 50 people in there, and then they'll be doing illegal activities in there. Enough is enough. There's been kidnappings in Ghana now, we are not safe. Today, your child will go to school, and the next minute, you are not safe. Today, someone is being kidnapped. The following day, someone is being kidnapped. The next day, someone is being kidnapped. We don't have a problem with foreigners coming into our country. But definitely, you cannot have a Ghana without a Nigerian. Definitely, there will be a Ghana with a Nigerian. But what we are asking for is that our immigration service will be able to access, and we can say boldly that there is a leakage in our immigration.
To my fellow Africans, I think you guys need to understand that where we are right now, the junction that we are right now, there's nothing you guys can do or say to hold South Africans to ransom. Yeah, there's nothing you can do to hold us hostage, because I think that's what you guys want to do. You want to manipulate South Africans and you want to corner us, and it's not going to work. You guys are, what I'm seeing on panels is that you guys are ganging up on South Africa. You don't want to understand what South Africans are saying. No, you want to condemn and impose your opinions, sentiments, and your perspectives on South Africans, and it is not going to work. South Africans are a patient people. It took us about 30 years to even check out the government of the African National Congress that has led South Africa since 1994. It took us time, so we take time to get upset. But by the time we get upset, there's nothing you can do about it. As you guys can see, you will hold your panels from now till tomorrow. It's not going to happen. You guys need to open your panels and start discussing a way forward. That why are South Africans thinking like this at this moment in time? You can call us xenophobic and all of that. It doesn't matter. We don't care anymore. Right? One. Secondly, I want you guys to understand, especially in Nigeria, you keep saying that you contributed money during the apartheid system so that black people will be liberated in South Africa. Let us be clear. You guys were in solidarity with South Africa, like the entire continent. However, it was just not only African countries that were in solidarity with black South Africans. The countries like Russia, Cuba, Palestine, just to mention a few, were in solidarity with South Africa. Do you see people from Palestine or Cuba or Russia coming into South Africa to commit crimes? All in the name of they were in solidarity with us during the apartheid system? Do you see African Americans coming into South Africa to commit crimes? No. The late Jesse Jackson, a whole president of the Republic of South Africa, President Ramaphosa, went to his funeral. Right. He gave a speech, 30-minute speech, applauding and thanking him for his contributions towards the liberation of black South Africans. The late Jesse Jackson. He also played a role in us obtaining our freedoms. So it's not just African countries that were in solidarity with South Africans. There were those in other parts of the world that were in solidarity with South Africans. Do you see them holding us at ransom? During the COVID, when we had COVID, right? We had doctors from Cuba still coming into South Africa to assist us in hospitals. These are people that love us to death. What you guys have done is you've came into the country and began to take advantage. I know a lot of Africans and I know what's happening in your countries. But let's say Nigeria, for example. In Nigeria, you cannot commit a crime. Once you commit a crime, you go to jail. In Zimbabwe, once you commit a crime, you go to jail. African countries have strict laws. You guys have turned South Africa into a banana republic, as you guys say. And you want South Africans to understand that crap. We are sick and tired of that. If the messaging is harsh, deal with it. If you think it's harsh, leave the country of South Africa. Honestly. 30 years of what? Now, you guys say that we give white people preference. South Africa is a diverse country. Did you not know? In South Africa, we have black, white, Indian, colored people residing in this country. We are a rainbow nation. The late Nelson Mandela said, South Africa is for all who live in it. You guys think he meant you guys foreigners? No, he meant South Africans. We cannot do away with white people or colors or Indians or black people of this country. We are a diverse country, like the United States of America. So deal with that. Leave the white people to South Africans. We will deal with our issues. We know the dynamics of this country. So every time we try to talk, you guys tell us that, oh yeah, look at the white people. Yes, look at Orania, look at this. It is none of your business. It is the business of South Africa. We will deal with that. It is so upsetting to see you guys open these panels and rubbish South Africans day and night. You guys can gang up against us because I've seen what you guys are coming now. You're ganging up on South Africans. It's not going to work. It's not going to. South Africans are not going to buy into that crap. We're not going to buy into that crap. First of all,
I know Nigeria right now is getting the heat back to back from Ghana and from South Africa. See, to me, Ghana is not doing anything wrong in my face. Ghana are only protesting for peaceful protests. They're not destroying foreigners' businesses. They're not stealing them. They're not killing their own black skin color. But South Africa are not being fair to their own black skin color. Despite that, black foreigners, there's a lot of black foreigners that are living in South Africa legally, but still South Africa say they don't still want them. But they are not being fair to their own black skin color, but they are being fair to other race, Pakistan, Indian, Bangladesh. All these people, they are being fair with them. They're not telling them to leave their country, even despite most of them might be illegal in that country. They might not even have proper documentation. They don't have problem. But to their own black skin color, they have problem with their own black skin color. That's what I'm going against South Africa. This is what I hate about them. They're not being fair to plan A, but they are being fair to plan B. They can lick their master's ass. They can lick other race asses. And now they are putting the whole tension in Nigeria. Now they are saying that it was Nigeria that caused these things. They are putting it on us now to feel like it's Nigeria that make them feel like they don't want black foreigners in their country anymore. They are blaming Nigeria now for this protest they are doing now right now. But for Ghanaian own is different. Everybody want the betterness for their country. We should also do the same too. One thing I know about Ghanaian, once they know that you're legal in that country and you're obeying the rules and regulations in that country, they don't have problem with you. They will even love you more, support you more. But once they don't like is that you being illegal in the country and you are still doing things that are going against their law. That's what Ghanaians don't like. These are the people Ghanaians want to chase out from their country. Illegal immigrants, illegal Nigeria from their country. Ghanaians don't kill foreigners. They don't loot foreigners' businesses. This is the reason why I support their movement. But South Africa own is just something else. South Africa own is just something else. And this is what I'm going against South Africa. They're not being fair to their own black skin color. They're telling their own black skin color to leave. Even if you're legal in that country, they still don't want you. This is what I hate about these people. This is what I hate. So it's different. It's different. Make all of them say, just Ghana. I see a whole Ghana, I want the portion. Oh, God, everybody want the betterness for their country. If they leave for country, maybe say you don't get proper documentation. If they deport you, maybe you go back. Because you just be like criminal for the country. You just be like criminal for the country. I know all these things all over the world. But citizens will get their own country interest at heart. Now then they do this kind of thing. Now then they do this kind of protest. Enough is enough. We are getting the heat. The heat is too much for we Nigerians. I beg. Moku just go back. If you if you didn't say you did for country, if you say you don't get proper documentation, go back home. That is different. Ghanaian protest is different from South African protest. South African protests, they are not being fair to their own black skin color. I'm not saying that I'm not going against the South African protest. But what I'm going against is you not being fair to your own black skin color. You are looting their businesses, destroying them. Even if a lot of them are illegal in that country, you still don't want them. You don't just want black foreigners in your country. That's what I'm going against. They're not being fair. But they can lick other race ass. They can lick their ass, but they're not being fair to their own black skin color. This is what is making me angry with South Africa. They're a bunch of dummies. They're uneducated people. They don't go to school. This is the reason why I'm angry with them. Nothing else. Everyone wants the betterness for their country, but do it right. Just the way Ghanaians are doing it. Ghanaians are not killing anybody. They're not looting. They're not stealing foreigners' businesses. They're crying to the government that they don't want illegal Nigerians in their country, which they are right. So Nigerians too, make we self do the same. If we love that country too, I don't say Nigerians that we love to accommodate. That country is too big. We don't really have time for all these kind of things. But okay, as things they go now, let's take action as well. Let's take action as well. When I say when South Africa go meet one Ghanaian citizen, tell us let me go back to the country. What did the country do? The country support them to come back. This is what country is all about. This is what a nation is all about.